Two. And we are live. I want to welcome everyone tonight to the Comanche County GOP podcast. And behind every candidate, look, I'm going to say this is going to be an exciting show tonight. Sharla thought of this last week, and she texted to me like early in the morning. I thought it was I thought it was early, and I'm saying this is a great idea to have all the first ladies on the podcast so we can ask them questions. And I'm excited for our first guest tonight because I think behind every candidate running for governor is a family making enormous sacrifices, and they're often far away from the spotlight. And tonight we're sitting down with one of those women, Nicole Lynn Merrick. Nicole,
Hello.
welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to a special series from the Comanche County GOP, Discussions with the Potential First Lady of Oklahoma. I'm Sharla Hildner, and joining me tonight is my co-host,
Rarchar Tortorello. How you guys doing tonight?
We hear from candidates all the time, their policies, their speeches, their debates, but behind every strong candidate is a strong family, and the role of First Lady often sets the tone and the heart for the entire state. So in this series, we're sitting down with the wives of conservative candidates for governor to hear their stories, their faith, and their vision for Oklahoma.
Tonight, we're honored to welcome Nicole Lynn Merrick, the wife of governor candidate Jake Merrick. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was and is a great idea. Thank you, Sharla.
Nicole, we're asking each guest in this series a few standard questions so voters across Comanche County and the state can truly get to know the women who may become our First Lady. So let's start at the beginning.
You know, Nicole, I was
Okay.
reading your bio, and it says that you and Jake met on a blind date and were married just 6 months later. And you guys are celebrating 15 years this year. You have to tell us that story. How did that blind date happen? And how did you know he was the one so quickly?
Well, first of all, we just celebrated 15 years in December. So we were in our 30s. Well, I was. He was a little bit younger. But my best friend, my oldest and one of my dearest friends called me and said, "Hey, I have this guy that I want you to meet." Well, I was kind of dating somebody, and I'm like, "Well, I'm, dating somebody right now." And she's like, "Well, you really have to meet this guy." And so I ended up breaking up with the guy like a month later, and she kept reaching out to me. And I really was just kind of done with dating, and just told the Lord, just bring me the one. I'm tired of this rodeo. And so it hit me one day that the friend that was wanting me to meet Jake is not the kind of friend that meddles. She doesn't set people up. And so I thought, okay, there's got to be something to this for her to keep pressuring this. When I say something, God had to be in this. So I agreed to go on a group date. And the group date, there was a concert we were going to go to, a Toby Mac concert. They all canceled. And so my friend said, "Hey, me and my fiance will go on a double date with y'all." And I said, "Sure." Well, then the night before she calls and she cancels. And she said, "Hey, I just don't feel like we're supposed to go on this date with you guys." I'm like, "What does that mean?" And so I'm like, "Well, I'm not standing the guy up. I'll go meet him and we'll have dinner and we'll just see from there." But see, I'd already checked him out on Facebook. And I liked what I saw and I liked what I read. So I thought, I'm gonna meet this guy. And I liked the fact that my friend who really hears from the Lord had saw something. So we met. He picks me up, or actually I met him at his office, his job. He was working at a gym, and he's in mixed match clothes because he just, working at a gym. He opens his truck door and trash literally falls out of his truck. And I thought, and I'm a very organized, kind of OCD kind of person. I'm like, this is not okay. So I'm feel like I'm off-centered in this video.
You're good now. There you go.
So we ended up going out. We sat at a restaurant for 3 hours and we just talked about our hearts. And there was so much unity in that first conversation that I walked away a little bit, honestly, scared, like, wow, this guy's amazing. And this kind of conversation doesn't happen until you've been maybe dating someone or even married, at that point. But So he invited himself to my family lake trip the next day for our second date. And the rest is history. We were married 6 months to the day later. And I knew it was right because first we were in unity in our hearts and our calling. And I could see it too.
Hey, I want to know before you go to the next question, Sharla. Nicole, was he bald back then too as well?
He was not. He had beautiful blonde hair, and he was going a little bald on top, and he said, "I'm going to shave my head." And this was after we were married. I said, "No, you're not." I'm like, "I don't care if you're going a little bald on top, as long as you got some on the sides." Well, he was teaching, he was a professor, and I walked into his class the day that he had shaved his head bald and did not tell me. And I
Oh.
walked in and stood at the back of the class and went, turned around and walked out. I was not very happy, but I will say this, he's got a great head, so he pulls it off well.
True.
If my husband were to shave his goatee, I probably would do the same thing. A funny quick story, when he retired from the military, he let his hair grow out. I went away for a weekend with the kids and came back, and he picked us up from the airport. I didn't recognize him. I walked right by him. I had no idea who he was. So it makes a difference, doesn't it? I love your background.
Adeline, our youngest, says, "Mom, don't ever let Dad grow his hair back," because she's only ever known him bald. And so when she sees pictures of him, she's like, "I don't like him with hair."
That is great. Well, I love your background, and you graduated from Tuttle High School. You were a four-time state champion cheerleader, and you showed pigs in FFA. That's really Oklahoman. How did you grow up in that rural agriculture, Friday Night Lights culture? How does that shape your values for Oklahoma?
Wow. Well, I think it really teaches you to value our state and our land. You know, FFA really taught me to value animals and farming. And I mean, in the last few years of my time at FFA, I did some land judging, and I really kicked myself because I wish I had done more, because I really loved that. And, you know, I just had shown pigs for so long. We raised pigs. But it honestly teaches you hard work. Living in a rural town, really, it's especially Tuttle, just very family oriented. It's getting so big now, but when I was in school, I graduated, I believe, with 93 people, and they were all family. It didn't matter what kind of personalities, or everybody knew everybody and got along for the most part. But I've also lived in Tulsa. I've also lived in Ohio. I've also lived in Ireland for a little bit. And so I've had a little bit of experience in big and small cities. And what I've found in Oklahoma is that the heart of true Okies and true Oklahomans is the same, whether you're in a big town or a small town.
Here, here. I agree with that. You know, if you remember the first time I met you guys, or you and your family, was maybe 4.5 years ago. I went to go visit David Nahibejas at his church. And both you and Jake and your girls were doing Bible study. That was a Saturday afternoon. And so I know that faith is strong in your family, as in many people who are looking at Jake as the future governor. Serving as a youth minister for 5 years, you've been leading the worship, but let's go to politics real quick. You know, sometimes politics can be a difficult area. How has your faith and ministry background helped you navigate the political world and support Jake behind the scenes?
Well, I would say that our faith has not only shapes us, our faith is who we are. Our faith in Jesus Christ he's our foundation. And so that's where we turn to. You know, everything we do, we really endeavor to hear from the Spirit of God to know what steps to make. As far as, you know, the dark world of politics, that's the world in general. Without Jesus, the world is dark. And so what I do is I view everybody. I mean, I'll say it this way. When Jake was a senator, we had some major issues, a lot of backbiting, a lot of lying to our faces. And what we would do is we would handle it in private. We would handle it with the Lord. And I can remember laying on the Senate floor after hours and just praying. I mean, I literally laid on the floor and just prayed over these senators that were giving us trouble, and just praying for them to see truth and to see light, and praying over their families. And so I think, there's darkness everywhere, but if we look at people through the eyes and the heart of God, and we pull them higher, and we pull them up, and not judge them for where we think they are or where we think they aren't. It's all about leading. I like this way. A pastor once said, don't people say, "Oh, don't give in to peer pressure." And I am the peer pressure, so I am the one that's the light. I am going to carry that. And so even though darkness, I think we froze for a minute, darkness all around us, be the light, be the salt and the light. And that's what we do. And so it doesn't matter what we're up against. Jesus is our source, and we trust in him.
Absolutely. I love that.
And just for our listeners tonight, Jake and Nicole are on Highway 66. Is that what it is? Highway 66? Route 66.
We're currently on the turnpike, headed back to Route 66 up in Veneta. So we're sitting at a Love's right now on the side of the road.
Borrowing
and I won't tell you, but I got pajama pants on and the tops. I look nice on the top, got pajamas on the bottom.
Every broadcaster doing and broadcasting from their own home is doing the same thing too. So you're in good company.
Hey, here's the deal. I am who I am. I'm going to be honest no matter what, sometimes to a fault.
Well, Nicole, if someone in Oklahoma who is watching tonight has never heard your story before, what is the one thing you would want them to understand about your family and why Jake is running for governor?
Well, 13 years ago, we adopted our oldest out of DHS. And in that time, we saw the brokenness of not only the families, but the system of Oklahoma's child welfare. And I remember when we were fostering Emmy, I sat in a parking lot while Emmy was in a counseling session with her biological mother. And I was just praying, and the Lord just spoke to my heart, not audibly, and I just sensed, I'm not just praying for Emmy and her family. I literally was praying for the families of Oklahoma. And in that moment, the Lord really burdened me for the families of Oklahoma. And so I went back and I was telling Jake just that experience. And so in that moment, we began to pray for all 77 counties, and have been for 13 years. And so as we've walked our journey with Emmy and learned what we've learned with her, and as Jake saw what he saw when he was senator, we knew that it was time for us to really step in and help bring the change that we feel Oklahoma needs to see, for us to really move forward and protect the people and help the people of Oklahoma. And so honestly, just a place of stepping into a different level of servanthood for our state.
That's powerful. Those early years really helped shape who you are, but now your family is walking in a very different road, one that could potentially lead to the governor's mansion. So let's talk about what life has been like on the campaign trail.
So running for governor, Nicole, is a major commitment. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish.
No, well, running for governor is a major commitment to the entire family. What has been the most challenging part of being on the campaign trail, and how do you keep your daughters, who are 16 and 11, grounded through all the chaos?
Well, life for us has always been an adventure. We are kind of all or nothing people. We're both very driven and hard workers. We get that from our families. Both of our dads and moms, for that fact, are very hard workers and very disciplined people. And so I think, being founded in that and being founded in Christ, that's where your grounding is. Your grounding is in Christ. So it doesn't matter what the Lord asks you to do or which direction this journey in life takes you, as long as you know that you are secure in the Lord, you can do anything. And so honestly, there are hard things. I mean, just going to be raw. I have to take diuretics and so Jake threw me off the toilet and I broke the door of the RV. And so now we've got to go get that fixed. So there's challenging things like that. Adel was in the shower the other night in the RV and the spigot came off, and so she's standing in there like with soap in her hair and not able to finish her shower. I think Jake's gone, at night, and he has missed a little bit of things here and there, but for the most part, this has been our life. So this step into running for governor is no different than the ministry the Lord's asked us to do, because it's all about servant. It's all about being a servant for whatever God has called you to be. And so you make what some people would call sacrifice. I actually had someone say to me, "Hey, Nicole, thank you for sacrificing to run for governor." And I'm like, see, I don't view it as sacrifice. I view it as sowing seeds into the people of Oklahoma. And so if you view anything in life, especially when you are serving, as seeds instead of a sacrifice, your whole outlook on life is different. And so even the hard things and the challenging things, you can laugh about, and you can, pray through it. And, you sit down, and there was some challenges Jake and I had to sit down and work through this week with our team. But it's a beautiful thing because you work through it and you see the glory of God in it. And so it doesn't matter what challenge the Lord has us step into. It's all about really seeing it as this is God's plan, and we're going to do it His way. There's going to be joy in it.
I love that. Amazing story.
Rarchar, I don't know if it cut out for you, but when she was telling the story of her sitting and breaking a door, the sound kind of cut out on my end. So people around the state may be filling in the blanks, Nicole. So if you get some
yeah, so we're driving down the highway, and I have to take diuretics because I have congenital heart disease. And so I'm constantly having to flush water off of me. So thank the Lord for this RV, because it's actually helped. And because if we were traveling 5 hours before, I couldn't take my diuretics. And then the next day was a little bit harder for me, not being, I could gain 8 pounds of water overnight. So I'm in the bathroom on this RV, and Jake's, bulleting down the highway and throws me off the toilet into the shower door. And I break the shower door. But it doesn't, I guess it's payback, because the other day when he was running, I actually ran over his foot. So
you're going to have some great stories out of this experience.
I
remember.
I was pulling up next to him as he was talking to a guy, and he stepped back. Thankfully, I was coming to a stop and only going about 2 miles an hour. So yes, while I did get on the back side of his foot and it slammed into the ground, he was fine, and he ran another 1.5 miles.
Goodness. Well, every First Lady brings her own passions and priorities into the governor's mansion and their own comical stories. If Jake is elected, what does the title First Lady of Oklahoma mean to you personally, and what initiatives or causes would you most champion?
Well, I think First Lady is, like I've said many times in this interview, it's about servanthood. And it's about really opening yourself to the people. And I think an important quality that a First Lady has to have is vulnerability. And that is something, as you can see, I'm a very vulnerable person. I'm not afraid to tell you my own personal stories that some people would rather keep private. So, what's in my heart to do is really help the families of Oklahoma. I would like to develop preventative plans and work with the churches and nonprofits to help families before kids are ever put into DHS, so that we can drain the need for DHS. And so I also would like to come up with some type of way. I don't know if we want to mandate it or just highly encourage that all of our first responders, teachers, doctors, especially ER doctors, are trauma informed. Because we have so many people that are, especially in mental health, it's because of trauma. And if we don't know how to recognize trauma in the moment and diffuse it or redirect it to help calm them down, it actually creates more of a problem. And we've learned this firsthand from our adopted daughter and what she's been through because of the trauma of what she's been through. We've had some very difficult things we've had to work through with her. And I've seen it. We had to pull her out of public school because the public school, we were in one of the best IEP schools in the state. they did not know how to help her behavior in a classroom because of her PTSD and anxiety. And so,
Wow.
you know, they would take her to the IEP classroom and she would finish her work in 20 minutes and make hundreds on everything, but she couldn't function in a classroom. And it's because they didn't understand trauma and how to diffuse and redirect her. And you see that, I think, you know, I've talked to a lot of police officers through the years, the same thing, like, well, we didn't know that, you know, he was trauma. I remember we was at our church and I could hear this kid screaming down the hall, and I go running down there, and we've got two men trying to help this kid that's throwing trash cans at our children's pastor. And they did not understand trauma. I said, back up. So they backed up, and I say this with authority. I was an associate pastor, me and my husband were, so they respected and listened to me. So they backed up, and I crouched down in front of that little boy, and I said his name, and I brought up, hey, do you like Spider-Man? Something like that. And I diffused him when they were just trying to control him. And so if we can, I want to see trauma informed more. And so I would love to advocate for that in our first responders and our teachers. But then, of course, these initiatives to help with our foster care problem, and even coming up with preventative plans to help these kids that are aging out of foster care. We should not have as many kids aging out of foster care as we have. So.
And I love that. I think just by us talking about it tonight, it's already going to shine a light on it. It's something that I think we're all kind of aware of. It really never knew exactly what it was. So now we know kind of what it is that we're dealing with. Nicole, your faith isn't just something that you talk about. Obviously, it's something that you have rely on, and through some very difficult circumstances. Rarchar, I know you wanted to talk to her a little bit about her medical journey.
You know, I think we all share the same similar type of journeys throughout our life here, but I think your personal health story is nothing short of a miracle. You know, you were born with congenital heart disease, later faced with the immense medical pressure to, I hate to use the word, to abort your daughter, who was born just at 2.5 pounds. Can you share that testimony with us and tell us how fighting for your daughter's life shaped your pro-life convictions?
I would love to share that story because it gives all the glory to God. So like you said, I was born with congenital heart disease. My heart is actually flipped backwards and on the right side of my body. All of my organs are opposite of where they should be. That, you know, is not the problem. The main issue is the heart is completely deformed. So I don't have the wall that divides the chamber of the heart. The chamber's not there. And I only have one valve taking blood to my lungs. So that has caused damage to my lungs as well. So the first time I was told I needed a double lung and heart transplant, I was 20. They were going to move me to the top of the transplant list for all 3 organs and would have me transplanted within 6 months. I did not have peace because of my faith in the Lord and just really going to him and praying about it. I did not have peace to do those surgeries. Later, I got hooked up with an incredible cardiologist in Dallas, which is who I still see, and I've been with her 25 years. And she said if I would have done that surgery, I would have died on the operating table because my heart is so deformed and is larger than it should be. They would have a hard time even finding a heart and being able to connect it to the lungs the right way. And so the Lord has really just been my keeper. He has held me, and my faith has been in him. You know, I'm sure people are like, I have people all the time when they hear my story, they're like, how are you doing today? You wouldn't know that I have this going on unless I tell you, because I am healthy and strong. I'm actually healthier now than what I've ever been. And here's a really cool thing. The one valve that I had blood going to my lungs was leaking and has been leaking since my 20s. And they said that the leak would get worse and eventually that valve would fail and I would have heart and lung failure. My last appointment, which was in October, that valve is no longer leaking, which is just a creative miracle. Only God can do that. And so I go nonstop. And so I know the questions are going to be out there. How can you be first lady and run this, you know, this type of commitment with a health like yours? Because I do it every day. I do this in everything that I do. You can ask anyone. I was a 4-time state champion in cheerleading on a very competitive squad. We got first runner up at nationals while I had all these same issues. And so I've always been a fighter. I don't take no for an answer. And so, yeah, I have symptoms, and there's some days I may need to rest and get a little more sleep than others. But for the most part, I'm a go-getter, and I don't let anything stop me. As far as, you know, Adeline's birth and the shaping, my stance on being an abolitionist and completely against abortion was shaped before my experience with Adeline. It was shaped by the word of God and the fact that, you know, life starts at conception. And so we need to protect life from the womb to the tomb. And Jake and I will do that as your governor and first lady, 100%. So that going into when, you know, when we were told we were pregnant, which we were trying to get pregnant, we were trusting the Lord with that. You know, the first, my cardiologist was like, Nicole, you know, I told you you're 20, you couldn't get pregnant. And if you did, 100% you and the baby would die. When do you want to schedule this abortion? And I said, well, Dr. B, you know me, and we're not doing this. And she's like, okay, we'll put a good team together. And then you go to the pulmonary doctor, the same question. Then you go to this OB who is a specialist that they set me up with. And she was very persistent. No, we're doing an abortion. You and the baby will die. And Jake looked at her with a righteous anger. And he said, I don't care if you're telling me it's 100% chance that my wife and my baby will die. We don't give life and we don't take it away. We are trusting God with this life. And so we went into that, and I was fully convinced in faith that God was going to bring us both out. I went into complete organ failure. Well, I went into heart failure at 24 weeks, and in about 30 weeks, all of my organs were shutting down. I was in the hospital for 2 months, and we did an emergency C-section at 30 weeks. Adeline went into the NICU. She was born 2.5. Well, I think she was born 3, but dropped to 2.5 within a couple days. But she was healthy. I just needed some time to finish developing. So we ended up being in Dallas, me in the hospital 2 months before delivery, and then her in the hospital 2 months after. And the miraculous thing is that they told me there was a 99% chance I would probably die after delivery because my heart and lungs couldn't take the excess fluid. And they said, and if you by chance do survive that, you'll be in the hospital anywhere from 4 to 6 months. I walked out of the hospital and right down to the NICU 10 days after I delivered.
But God.
Such strength. You know, I think, you know, for a dude, I'm kind of tearing up. I think we should do a quick prayer.
I'm glad you said that because I'm trying not to wipe.
Look, this is a great story. And, you know, I just ask God to look down on this family and protect this family, protect the mother, protect the kids, and protect Jake on their journey to the governor's mansion. I don't usually tear up ever, and so this is so strange for me, but I hope and I want God to look out for you guys. But we're down to the last 5 minutes, and before we let you go, I've got a final question I want to ask you, and we're asking everyone in the series. You know, we see Jake at the rallies and on television, but as his wife, what is that something about his character or heart that the public rarely gets to see that makes you believe that he's the right man to lead the great state of Oklahoma?
Well, I believe what makes him the right man is what is seen by everyone. And that's he's submitted to the Holy Spirit. And that's key. And then also, if you want to flip it onto the non-spiritual side of things, he's the most selfless person you'll ever meet. He literally, I mean, you see that in public. Listen to him talk. He never talks about, I've done this and I've done that. He talks about what he's going to do for the people. And it's really, he's lived his life. That's one of the things that made me fall in love with him was his selflessness. And he's such a true servant of the people, not just the people of Oklahoma, of people in general. And so I don't think that's something that's hidden that only we get to see. That's just who he is. And that's how he lives. And if anybody looks at all close, they can see that in Jake. But Jake is who he is. I mean, you're not seeing anything different in our home than what you're seeing up on stage or in a rally or running down the side of the road. He's a man of high integrity.
Agreed.
Well, Nicole Merrick, thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing your heart with Comanche County. Jake, if you're there, thank you so much for sharing her with us tonight. This has been a blessing to all of us and anyone who's listening and who may hear this after we close. I also want to thank my co-host for Tortorello. Thank you for talking me into doing this. I'm being blessed from doing it, so you are blessing my life as well. And thank you to everyone who's watching. If you'd like to stay involved with Comanche County Republican Party, we meet every third Tuesday. This month we'll be meeting at the Lawton Country Club from 11:30 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Our guest speakers this month will be Mike Mazie for governor, Victor Flores for lieutenant governor, Brad Bowles for corporation commissioner, and Chris Meredith. And I believe that Jake is going to be joining us in April. Conversations like this help voters see the people behind the campaigns. If you found tonight helpful, take a moment and share this video so other Oklahomans can hear Nicole's story as well. Thank you again.
You know, I can attest. Well, we're not done yet, so hold on a sec. I can attest to Jake's character.
Okay.
No, look, Jake, you know, he is the same person in private as he is in public. And you know, there's only a few handful of people who can actually say that about that we know personally. But I want to, you know, we do this every Sunday. Our next episode is March 22nd at 8 p.m. Right here on Facebook Live for another episode of discussions with the potential first ladies of Oklahoma. We'll have Stephanie McCall on, wife of governor candidate Charles McCall. Next week, we might have another surprise. So stay tuned, everyone, and good night.
Good night.
Night.